Okay, so I wanted to take the time to kind of walk you guys through some different Google hacks and kind of do a series of videos on that. So what we're going to do today is look at a potential hack that you could use for Google Slides. And so we'll do this in each of the G Suite tools, but in Google Slides, I wanted to show you a way that you could actually use Google Slides as a newsletter. So what you really need to keep in mind here is what your final format is going to be. Is this something you're going to print out? Is this something you're going to send digital copies of? Or is this something you're just going to link on your website or share on social media? And so kind of keep that in mind as you're going through and setting up your format for this. So what you would want to do ahead of time is to go through and try to find a template or something similar to what you have in mind, and kind of use that as your base to model exactly how you're going to lay things out. So you can see there's several different here. Some of these have some complex ways that they're wrapping text and inserting images, and I mean, you can definitely do that, but you also want to keep in mind the simplicity of it. Okay, so going back into a new slide presentation, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and name this. This is going to be my newsletter template. And so what I actually like to do is start with the blank slide. So I'm going to go ahead and add a blank slide. And I'm going to delete my original title slide because I no longer need it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go in and change the layout of the document itself. So to do this, you go to File and go to Page Setup. So when you think of a newsletter, you're going to want something that's going to be easy to print on a regular sheet of paper if that's the direction you're going. And in this case, I want it to look, even if I'm not going to print it, I want it to look as much like a printed newsletter as possible. So I'm going to go down to Custom once I've gone to Page Setup. And a regular sheet of paper is 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to change my dimensions to 8.5 by 11. And then if I also look over in the drop down, I can do this in inches, centimeters, points, or pixels. So I'm going to keep this in inches, and I'm going to hit apply. And then you see that it rotates my document around so that I can actually work with it at this point. And so once you get here, this is where you're going to start adding in your different elements. And so I may have a picture that I want to use as the header, or I just may want to fill in with text boxes and have different areas where I'm inputting text. And so this one might be my events that are coming up. And then I may add another text box here that is for important information. And you can adjust this and actually make these headings or do whatever you want to here on each of these sections. But the point is that you're just wanting to go ahead and block off certain areas. And so this area up here would be where my heading is going to go. And I want to change and fill this one in with a different color so that it stands out. And so I can change my text color, do all of that in this one. So that it's easy to read. And then this section over here for my events, I want it to be a different color as well. So I'm kind of going to try to maintain a theme of some sort here. I can do this in school colors, whatever works best. And that way there's some distinction here, and it's easier for you too to see where each of your sections are. And then you can add another one over here. You can add pictures, do whatever you need to as part of this. And so when you're done, if you've worked with it enough, you can end up with a template that even looks like this one here on the left, that High Classroom, that Skyline High Classroom newsletter that you see there. Or if you want to, you can kind of get a little bit more simplistic with your approach and just do just a straight newsletter like you see this holiday Christmas newsletter there. So you've got a lot of options there. It all just really needs to boil down to what's going to fit your classroom needs and your overall intent for how you're going to deliver this. So if you're wanting something that you're going to end up printing and handing out, but then also providing a digital copy of it, try to do your layout so that it's going to work for both. And keep in mind too, what is this going to look like if it's printed on colored paper, or what's this going to look like if it's printed out in black and white? So all of that needs to play into how you lay this out and design it. But the good thing about it is once you've got it done, you can come back in and just take this template that you've used, and then you go in and you do a make a copy, and then change that copy to the date for the week or whatever. And so you've got that in there. Another thing to keep in mind too is, what's your purpose behind your newsletter? Is this something that you're going to be sending out weekly? Is it monthly? And if you do send it out weekly, what information are you putting on there? I mean, if it's something that's not important or doesn't have an impact on it, what's the perception that's going to come across when parents receive that? And so you want to make whatever you're doing here worthwhile and make it consistent. So if you get to where you have 2 or 3 weeks where you're just repeating the same content over and over again, your parents are going to get to the point where they're not even going to look at it anymore. They're just going to toss it in the trash as soon as they pull it out of the student folder. So with that in mind, I mean, you can see this new way that you can use Google Slides to do something that might take you a long time to set up in other areas. So if you are a Google school, trying to do this in Docs is challenging. Much easier to do this in Slides than it is in Docs. And so that's why I recommend this hack for doing your classroom newsletter.